Hello friend, welcome to another unit of financial management. In unit 2, we will understand accounting concepts, the principles, basis and the policies of accounting. This unit will help us to understand various concepts of accounting, various principles of accounting, and we will understand accounting standards in detail in this chapter. Let's begin to the first part of this unit 2. Now, when I say accounting principle, what comes to your mind? Accounting information is used at the various level and by different stakeholders. And as you are aware, all the stakeholders should understand the accounting language in the same sense, and to understand it uniformly, and it has to be common ways, there are certain principles and the concept and the policies of accounting has been laid down, right? So accounting principle can be classified as two parts. First is concept and convention. So accounting principles are basically the rules of action adopted by the accountants universally for recording the transaction. These principles are doctrines associated with theory and procedures of current practice of account, right? As I said, there are two principles, or I can say the principle can be classified as two ways, that is concept and the conventions. When I say concept of accounting, what comes to your mind? The concept is nothing but concept takes the form of assumption or condition which guide the accountant while preparing accounting statement. अगर मुझे ये हिंदी में कहना पड़े कि कंसेप्ट को कैसे डिफाइन किया जाए, तो कंसेप्ट और कोई चीज नहीं है, एक अजम्पशन है, एक धारणा है, कुछ ऐसे कंडीशंस है जिस पर अकाउंटेंट अपना अकाउंटिंग स्टेटमेंट बनाता है, वो कंसेप्ट है एक. और कन्वेंशन की अगर मैं बात करूं, कन्वेंशंस आर दोस कस्टम्स एंड ट्रेडिशंस which guide the accountant while preparing the financial statement. इसका मतलब ये होता है कि कन्वेंशन एक ऐसे हमारी परंपरा है, एक ऐसा ट्रेडिशन है, एक ऐसी परंपरा है जिसे हम एक अकाउंटेंट होने के नाते हम उस प्रिंसिपल पे ही अकाउंट को बनाते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मैं पहले एग्जाम्पल लूंगा कंसेप्ट के बारे में. बिजनेस मुझे अगर चालू करना है, बिजनेस इज टू बी स्टार्टेड, so what is the assumption? The assumption is that it shall be continued for a long period of time and none wishes is to close down for a short term period, right? ये concept है कि मैं बिजनेस चला रहा हूँ तो एक लंबे समय के लंबे अवधि के लिए बनाऊंगा, बिजनेस चलाऊंगा. मेरा पर्पस नहीं है कि आज मैं बिजनेस स्टार्ट करके कल बंद कर दूं, राइट? अब यही चीज अगर मैं कन्वेंशंस के हिसाब से अगर डिस्कस करूं, तो अगर इसका एग्जांपल दूं, तो इन्वेंट्री जो हमारे पास स्टॉक्स होते हैं बिजनेस के अंदर इज वैल्यूड एट द एंड ऑफ अकाउंटिंग पीरियड एट द कॉस्ट और मार्केट प्राइस विच एवर इज लोअर. सो कन्वेंशन ये है कि हमारे पास अगर बिजनेस कर रहे हैं तो अंत में स्टॉक जो भी बचता है उसको हम अंत में रिकॉर्ड करते हैं और मार्केट वैल्यू या उसकी कॉस्ट प्राइस के ऊपर जो भी कमी होगी उस लेवल से हम उसे एंटर करते हैं बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट में, राइट? दैट इज अ कन्वेंशन मेथड. Coming to accounting policy. When I say accounting policy refers to the specific accounting principles, right? Accounting policy refers to nothing but a specific accounting principles या method of applying those principles adopted by the enterprise in preparation and presentation of financial accounts. राइट? ये वो प्रिंसिपल है, अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल वो है जो हमारे एक उसूल होते हैं अकाउंटिंग के. उन उसूलों के ऊपर हम हमारे फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को बनाते हैं. एक पर्टिकुलर प्रिंसिपल है. यदि यूनिवर्सली वो नहीं एक्सेप्ट किया जाएगा तो हर व्यक्ति अपने अकाउंटिंग को अपनी तरह से बनाएगा और वो समझना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. और इसीलिए अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी बनाई जाती है. एक प्रिंसिपल्स होते हैं जिसके ऊपर पूरे जितने भी अकाउंटिंग बनाए जाएंगे, जितने भी लोग बनाएंगे, एक उसी स्टैंडर्ड पे बनाएंगे, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, while depreciating an asset, that practice of adopting straight line method or diminishing balance method or any other method of convention. राइट? जैसे कि किसी भी चीज को हम डेप्रिशिएट करते हैं, एक फर्नीचर है, कार है, हर वर्ष के अंत में उसकी एक डेप्रिसिएशन होती है, उस कार की हम कीमत को डेप्रिशिएट कर देते हैं, कम हो जाती है कीमत। तो उसे हम कई एक मेथड होते हैं, जैसे स्ट्रेट लाइन मेथड या डिमिनिशिंग मेथड, आपने सुना होगा, ये सारे मेथड होते हैं। इसके बारे में और डिटेल जानकारी हम आगे लेंगे। So now we are talking about generally accepted accounting principle. जनरली जो अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल कौन से एक्सेप्ट होते हैं? Now the double entry system of accounting, you must have heard the double entry system of accounting. कोई भी अकाउंटिंग की अगर ट्रांजैक्शन होती है तो उसकी डबल एंट्री होती है। एक ट्रांजैक्शन के लिए आपको डबल एंट्री देना ही पड़ता है, एक डेबिट साइड में होगा तो दूसरा क्रेडिट साइड में होगा। So double entry system of accounting is based on the set of principles which are called as generally accepted accounting principle, right? For example, an entity having a research and the development department, he may follow the policy of deducting all R&D, research and development expenses incurred in a year as revenue expenses, while for the same situation another identity may classify as R&D expenses. क्योंकि R&D फर्म है तो मेरे लिए वो खर्चा है, लेकिन किसी और कंपनी जिसका काम R&D रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट का नहीं है, उनके लिए ये तो एक R&D एक्सपेंस बन गया। लेकिन जो R&D कंपनी है उनके लिए वो R&D एक्सपेंस नहीं होगा, प्योर एक्सपेंसेस हो जाते हैं, राइट? दैट इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एक्सप्लेनिंग यू दैट दिस आर जनरल एक्सेप्टेड अकाउंटिंग प्रिंसिपल. There are certain norms which are given. If you refer in your books for annexure 1, you will come to know there are certain annexure at the end of the unit are provided for you to details difference between US GAAP norms and Indian GAAP norms, right? So this GAAP norms is nothing but a generally accepted accounting principle, GAAP, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle, like US and India norms are been mentioned in your books. Coming to accounting standard. When I say accounting standard, what comes to your mind? To bring a uniformity in the terminology of accounting, the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, ICAI, established Accounting Standard Board. In order to have a uniformity, सारे जहाँ पर एक जैसे इंडिया के अंदर सारे अकाउंटिंग प्रोसीजर सिमिलर हो, इसके लिए हमारे पास एक इंस्टीट्यूट है, भारत की सबसे बड़ी इंस्टीट्यूट है जिसको हम कहते हैं इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट ऑफ इंडिया, ICAI, जिन्होंने ये एस्टैब्लिश किया है, एक बोर्ड बनाया है जिसके अंदर अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड के एक अपने बोर्ड बनाए हैं जिसे हम कहते हैं ASB, अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड बोर्ड, जो 1977 में फॉर्म किया गया था. And accounting standard is a selected set of accounting policies or broad guidelines regarding the principles and the method to be chosen out of these several alternate are given. Altogether in accounting standard there are 32 accounting standard issued by ASB, that is Accounting Standard Board. There are total 32 standards which are given. This also you can find in the annexure 2 of your books, right? So those are accounting standards. Going to the further, we are talking about type of accounting concept. When I say type of accounting concept, there are concepts are the basic assumption on the condition upon which the science of accounting is based, and each concepts we will discuss in detail. For example, it is in terms of business separate entity concept, going concern concept, money measurement concept, periodicity concept, actuarial concept. We will understand each concept in detail now. Let's start with the first part, that is business separate entity concept. When I say business separate entity concern, it is nothing but the essence of the concept is that the business is a separate entity and it is a different from the owner or the proprietor. It is an economic unit which owns its assets and has its own obligation. आप किसी भी बिजनेस एंटिटी को एक जनरल एंटिटी की तरह नहीं ट्रीट कर सकते हैं. बिजनेस एंटिटी अपने आप में एक सेपरेट आइडेंटिटी है. जो ओनर और प्रोप्राइटर के लिए एक डिफरेंट आइडेंटिटी मानी जाती है, और उसके सारे ट्रांजैक्शंस को अकाउंटिंग कंसेप्ट को आप सेपरेट मेंशन करते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल, पर्सनल बैंक अकाउंट ऑफ अ प्रोप्राइटर इज अ डिफरेंट आइडेंटिटी. कैश विड्रॉल फ्रॉम द बिजनेस और अ प्राइवेट पर्सन शुड बी अकाउंटेड सेपरेटली. एक मैं बिजनेस चला रहा हूं और मेरी अपनी पर्सनल अकाउंट भी है और मेरे फर्म की भी अकाउंट है, तो मेरा अपना जो अकाउंट है पर्सनल, उसको मैं सेपरेट ट्रीट करूंगा और बिजनेस अकाउंट को सेपरेट ट्रीट करूंगा. मैं दोनों को मर्ज नहीं कर सकता हूं. दैट इज व्हाट इज वन ऑफ द अकाउंटिंग कंसेप्ट व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज सेपरेट एंटिटी कंसेप्ट. राइट. गोइंग फर्दर, द नेक्स्ट वन, that is going concern concept. When I say going concern concept, what strikes to your mind? All right, let me explain you. This concept form the basis of for the distinctions between expenditure that will yield or benefit over a long term. It is not for a short term. And expenditure whose benefit will be exhausted in a short term, those are current asset. And similarly, the liabilities are classified as a long term liability. As we discussed in the unit 1, if you remember, short term liability, long term liability, we discussed short term asset, fixed assets. So all this is nothing a going concern concept. This fundamental assumption is that the business entity will continue a fairly, एक अच्छी तरह से एकदम fair business होगा और long term के लिए आप run करेंगे. And there is no reason why an enterprise should be promoted for a short term period. Right? So that is what going concern concept. It is nothing but it is for the assumption, or it is on the based on a long term concept is called as going concern concept. Coming further, money measurement concept. When I say money measurement concept, it is nothing but all transaction of business are to be recorded in terms of money only. मनी मेजरमेंट कंसेप्ट का मतलब होता है हर ट्रांजैक्शन जो भी बिजनेस से होती है ये पैसे से रिलेटेड ही होनी चाहिए. एन इवेंट और अ ट्रांजैक्शन दैट कैन नॉट बी एक्सप्रेस्ड इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी, दैट कैन नॉट बी रिकॉर्डेड इनटू द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट. फॉर एग्जांपल, एक ऑनेस्ट एम्प्लॉय है, डायनामिक सेलिंग एजेंट है, उसके प्रॉम्प्टनेस एंड इंटीग्रिटी ऑफ द कैशियर माइट इन्फ्लुएंस द बिजनेस रिजल्ट बट कैन नॉट बी अकाउंटेड इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट. ऐसे ही एक अच्छे टैलेंटेड एम्प्लॉय के अंदर कोई टैलेंट है और उसके टैलेंट की वजह से प्रोडक्शन अच्छा चल रहा है, तो ये एक गुडविल है जो आप समझ सकते हैं, महसूस कर सकते हैं, बट इसे अकाउंट में नहीं मेंशन कर सकते हैं कहीं पर भी. दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज मनी मेजरमेंट कंसेप्ट. नेक्स्ट इज पीरियोडिसिटी कंसेप्ट. Periodicity concept is nothing, the time interval for which accounts are prepared is an important factor even though we assume long life of the business. हम सब जानते हैं हम बिजनेस एक लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए करते हैं, फिर भी जब बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट लिखी जाती है, ट्रांजैक्शन नोट करते हैं, तो हर साल के लिए करते हैं हम. ये नहीं कि पूरे 15-20 साल के लिए आप एक साथ में अकाउंट बना दे, ऐसे नहीं होता. हर साल हम अपने अकाउंट्स बनाते हैं, ऑल्दो हमें पता है कि हमने एक लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए बिजनेस किया हुआ है. राइट. सो दिस इज नथिंग बट अ periodicity concept. Coming to the next part, that is accrual concept. When I say accrual concept, what happens is the profit earned or the loss suffered from the accounting period is result of both cash and credit transactions. It is possible that in certain conditions the incomes are earned but not received, as we discussed in the unit 1. And similar certain expenses incurred but not yet paid during the accounting period. Right? So this can happen in the business, but it is relevant to consider them while computing the financial result, because आज हमने कोई चीज क्रेडिट सेल किया है लेकिन उसका पैसा अभी नहीं आया है, शायद अगले 6 महीने या 8 महीने में आने वाला है, बट बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट को आज हम क्लोज कर रहे हैं, तो हमें वो मेंशन करना जरूरी है, वरना सही एनालिसिस बिजनेस की नहीं निकल पाएगी. Right? So this is nothing but an accrual concept. For example, on 31st December, interest received on the fixed deposit was rupees 12,000. the interest amount was credited to the bank account in the February of next year, that is 2 months later. According to the accrual concept of income from the interest is 12,000, though it is received after 2 months, right? So it has to be accorded. This is nothing but a accrual concept. So we have learned now types of accounting concept. The first is business as a separate entity. We cannot mix it up. Going concept, that is we cannot consider as a business as only short term. आज start किया और कल बंद कर देंगे. We have to consider it for a long term. Next is money measurement concept. Like when I say money measurement concept, is there nothing? It is based on the money and not on the kind. Okay, periodicity concept, that is every accounting period we have. We cannot take it for a long term. Accrual concept is something which we have not received so far, or we have not paid to somebody which we need to pay for a long term, is called as accrual concept. Any doubts so far? Okay. Before proceeding to accounting principle, I want to ask once again if any doubt. Okay, let's move further. Accounting principles. There are 10 basic principles of accounting. We will understand each principle in details. First, let me explain you what are these 10 principles. First is principle of income recognition. Next is principle of expenses. Third is principle of matching cost and revenue. Next is historical cost principle. Then we have principle of full disclosure. Then we have double assets principle. We have modifying principle. We have principle of materiality. We have principle of consistency. We have principle of full disclosure. We have a principle of conservatism. Right? Let's go in detail to understand each principle. First is principle of income recognition. What do you understand by this? इसका मतलब ये होता है कि इस कंसेप्ट के अनुसार जो भी रेवेन्यू हम कंसिडर करते हैं वो एक पर्टिकुलर डेट पे रियलाइज होना है. दैट मीन्स दैट डेट ऑन विच गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज आर ट्रांसफर्ड टू कस्टमर फॉर कैश और फॉर अ प्रॉमिस हैज टू बी मेज्ड एज अ इनकम रिकॉग्निशन. It should further be noted that it is an amount which customers are expected to pay, right, and shall be recorded. So it affects only revenue which is usually realized. For example, a sale is considered to be made when the property in goods is transferred from the seller to buyer. Similarly, when a businessman receives an order for a sale of such product yet to be manufactured, then the revenue is said to be generated when the products are ready and physically present in deliverable state. अगर कोई ऑर्डर मिल गया और मैंने अभी तक वो प्रोडक्ट बेचा ही नहीं, बनाया ही नहीं है, तो आई कैन नॉट कंसिडर एज ए इनकम. मैं तभी उसे इनकम ट्रीट करूंगा जब वो प्रोडक्ट बन चुका है और उसे डिलीवर हो गया कस्टमर के पास, तभी हम उसे इनकम रिकॉग्नाइज करेंगे. राइट? कमिंग टू सेकंड प्रिंसिपल, प्रिंसिपल ऑफ एक्सपेंसेस. Expenses are of different expenses can be for different payments, right? The payment becomes expenditure or an expense only when such payment is revenue in nature and made for a consideration. For example, salary paid. सैलरी देना तो है, अगर हमने दिया नहीं है तो आज एक्सपेंस नहीं है, वो अनपेड एक्सपेंसेस है. जब आप देते हैं तब वो एक्सपेंस बन जाता है. फर्नीचर परचेस, फर्नीचर जब परचेस करते हैं आप पेमेंट देते हैं तो कैपिटल पेमेंट गॉन. Therefore, all the revenue expenses are transferred to profit and loss account at the a certain period only. Right? Coming to the principle of matching cost and revenue. In this concept, in this principle of accounting, what we do is revenues earned during the period, at specific period, is compared with the expenditure incurred in order to know the income. So whatever is my expenses, I'll deduct from my income. So I'll come to know what is my profit. That is principle of matching cost and revenue. This is matching cost and the revenue principle, which is important to find out the profit earned for the period. Right? Coming to next principle, historical cost principle. As the name says, this is called as cost principle. All assets are recorded at the cost of acquisition, and this cost is the basis for all subsequent accounting for the assets. और ये expenses और good purchase हमेशा हम वैल्यू में इनकर्ड करते हैं. दैट मीन्स द एक्सपेंसेस एंड द गुड परचेस आर शोन एट द वैल्यू एट विच दे आर ऑलवेज इनकर्ड, एंड दिस वैल्यू ऑफ एसेट्स इज कॉन्स्टेंटली रिड्यूस्ड बाय चार्जिंग डेप्रिसिएशन, बिकॉज हर वर्ष के बाद हम उस पर डेप्रिसिएशन चार्ज करते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, कोई आपने प्रॉपर्टी ले ली या आपने कोई जगह खरीद ली है या कार खरीद ली है, हर साल उसके अंत में आप उसको डेप्रिसिएशन चार्ज करते हैं. दैट इज हिस्टोरिकल कॉस्ट. जो आपने परचेज किया था, हो सकता है उसकी आज मार्केट कॉस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा हो. प्रॉपर्टी का एग्जांपल ले लेते हैं. जो आपने परचेज किया था वो बहुत लोएस्ट रेट में लिया था, पर वो हो सकता है मार्केट बढ़ गई है, वो डेवलपमेंट ज़्यादा होने की वजह से आपके प्रॉपर्टी की कॉस्ट बढ़ चुकी है, बट हिस्टोरिकल वैल्यू ही हम लेते हैं. राइट. कमिंग टू प्रिंसिपल ऑफ फुल डिस्क्लोजर. एज पर नेम सेज फुल डिस्क्लोजर, इसका मतलब होता है कि ए बिजनेस एंटरप्राइजेस शुड डिस्क्लोज रेलेवेंट इंफॉर्मेशन to all the parties concerned in the organization. It has to be fully transparent. Next is double assets principle. When I say double assets principle, this concept is the most fundamental one for the accounting. Every business entity is an independent unit and it receives benefit from some and the given benefit to some other. Benefit received and the benefit given should always मैच एंड बैलेंस. दोनों को मैच और बैलेंस करना जरूरी है, इसीलिए हम कहते हैं डबल एसेट्स प्रिंसिपल. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हम बैलेंस शीट की बात करते हैं, बैलेंस शीट में आपके लायबिलिटीज साइड यानी कि आपके लेफ्ट साइड में आप कैपिटल लिखते हैं और एसेट साइड में हम स्टॉक्स, कैश एट बैंक, कैश इन हैंड, इस तरह की चीजें लिखते हैं और दोनों की टोटल को मैच करते हैं जो इक्वल बैलेंस हो जाना चाहिए. दैट इज कॉल्ड एज डबल एसेट्स प्रिंसिपल. The total liabilities are equal to the total asset. This is dual aspect of accounting, right? So this established the principle of accounting is that for every debit there is an equivalent credit, and this is called as double entry principle, right? We'll move further as we discuss double asset principle. We'll go to the next, that is modifying principle. The modifying principle states that the cost of applying the principle should not be more than the benefit derived from them. That means if the cost is more than the benefit, then the principle should be modified. This is called cost benefit principle, right? Coming to the next part, that is your principle of materiality. When I say principle of materiality, there are certain things. While important details of the financial status must be informed to all relevant parties, correct? Here in principle of materiality, the insignificant facts which do not influence any decision of investor or any interest group need to be communicated accurately. Such less significant facts are not regarded as a material fact. What is material and what is not material depend upon the nature of information and the party whom the information is provided. While income has to be shown on the income tax purpose and the amount can be rounded off to the nearest 10 or the fractions does not matter. So the statement of account sent to a debtor contains all detail regarding the invoices raised, amount outstanding, and etc. So what happens here? This information on debtor furnished to the registrar of company need to be in detail. What happens is, whatever you spend, whatever is your income, whatever is a debtor creditor, has to be materialistic. It has to be fact. It has to be with detail. The invoice number, the debtor's name, for transaction what it happened, and the bank transaction where it happened, how the payment was released, whether it is outstanding or the payment has come. If it has come, the check number and the bank detail, everything to be materialistic. It has to be a fact figure. These are the principles, so we cannot go beyond the principle of this. Next is principle of consistency. When I say principle of consistency, it is nothing. Consistency is required. If it is not there, there would be a problem in comparison of financial data for a period to one period to another. So consistency is required to help comparison of financial data from one period to another. Once a method of accounting is adopted, it should not be changed. For example, company start FIFO method, that is first in first out. जो मटेरियल सबसे पहले आएगा कंपनी में उसी को कंपनी बाहर बेचेगी. सो दैट इज फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट. कुछ कंपनी ने अडॉप्ट किया है LIFO मेथड, लास्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट, यानी कि जो लास्ट में आई हुई है कंपनी के अंदर माल उसको सबसे पहले निकालेंगे. सो दिस आर द सर्टेन प्रिंसिपल व्हिच हैज बीन अडॉप्टेड बाय कंपनी फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज द कंपनी will, once they adopted certain method, they would stick to that method and they will not change to that method. That is what is called as principle of consistency. Coming to the principle of full disclosure, when I say principle of full disclosure, it is nothing. The company has to disclose every detail as a whole to the customer, to their stakeholders. Principle of conservatism. When I say principle of conservatism or prudence, is nothing but accountants always follow the rule, that is anticipate no profit but provide for all anticipated losses. What it means, whenever the risk is anticipated, sufficient provision should be made. That is what is the meaning of anticipated no profit but provide for all anticipated losses. The value of investment is normally taken a cost even if the market value is higher than the cost. आपको मार्केट वैल्यू जब भी आप किसी कॉस्ट प्रोडक्ट की ले रहे हैं मार्केट वैल्यू पे लेना है, हालांकि वो ज़्यादा भी हो सकती है कम भी हो सकती है, बट यू हैव टू कंसिडर इफ द मार्केट वैल्यू एक्सपेक्टेड इज लोअर देन द कॉस्ट, then the provision should be made by charging profit and creating investment fluctuation fund. Right? This is the principle of conservatism. Any questions, friend? Before we move further, these 10 principles are principle of income recognition, principle of expenses, principle of matching cost and revenue, historical cost principle, principle of full disclosure, double assets principle, modifying principle, principle of materiality, principle of consistency, principle of full disclosure and principle of conservatism. Right? We'll move further. Accounting standard. When I say accounting standard, it is a selected set of accounting policies or the broad guidelines regarding the principle and the method to be chosen out of the several alternatives. So standard is nothing but the adherence to certain law, right? The basic purpose, what is the basic purpose of accounting standard? The basic purpose is to harmonize the diverse accounting policies and practice that are certainly or currently used in India, right? Now, accounting standard. Now, there are two things which we will discuss over here. First is scope and the function of accounting standard board. Second is international financial reporting system. Let's understand what is the scope and the function of accounting standard board, that is ASB. Like the accounting standard board was constituted first time by the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, that is ICAI, on 21st April 1977. This board ASB, that is Accounting Standard Board, was set up in 21st April 1977, and the aim of this board was to bring the uniformity among various accounting policies and the practice that were practiced in India, right? At present, there are 32 accounting standards issued by this council, and this 32 standards you can see in unit 2 of your book, which talks about various accounting standards mentioned as per ICAI. ICAI, that is Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Alright. Coming to International Financial Reporting System, IFRS, International Financial Reporting System, IFRS are standards that are interpretations and the framework for preparation and presentation of financial statement. And IFRS was framed by the International Accounting Standard Board. And the objective was to have a uniformity accounting system across India. Correct? Any questions before we move further for the summary part? Let's summarize today's learning. What are the basic principles of accounting? There are 10 basic principles. The first one is principle of income recognition, principle of expenses, principle of matching cost and revenue, historical cost principle, principle of full disclosure, double asset principle, modifying principle, principle of materiality, principle of consistency, principle of full disclosure, and principle of conservatism. Right, friend? Any questions? Thank you and have a very bright future ahead, and please do visit to Unit 3, which will talk in details about double entry accounting system. Take care. Thank you.